Hey, I'm Dino Monoxelos, and you're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com, coming to you today from the 2016 Summer NAMM Show, Nashville, Tennessee, with our good buddy Dino Monoxelos. How are you, Dino?
Good, John. How are you, my friend?
Good, good. It's good to see you. Boy, we've seen each other so many times over the years, and we've kind of talked here and there, but this is the first time we've actually done an interview for Bass Players Only, so I am truly honored.
The honor is all mine. Serious? This is cool.
Let's talk about you.
Enough about you. Let's talk about me now.
That's right. You're originally from the East Coast, right? You're from the Boston area, and I know you spent a lot of time out in L.A.
Yep.
And then, are you back on the East Coast now?
I'm back on the East Coast. I'm in New Hampshire now.
Okay. Well, let's go back to those early days. Something must have happened that made you discover bass, made you discover music. Did you come from a musical family? Were there, records playing, going to concerts, special things on the radio? I mean, in that spirit, how would you describe your musical upbringing, Dino? I don't know what I said that's funny, but I can't wait to hear.
No, it is kind of funny because I was actually not brought up in a musical household.
That's not so unusual.
Greek immigrant parents, Greek immigrant grandparents. We listened to Greek music. Okay. There was no pop music being played.
Did you watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
I lived that movie.
Oh, I was going to ask you if that was accurate or if that was...
Oh, it was accurate. Absolutely accurate.
Okay, well, we'll do another interview and we'll talk about all that fun stuff. But let's get back to you and your music.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of my influences come from my older brothers and sisters, growing up listening to what they were listening to.
How many siblings do you have?
I've got 7 older siblings. Okay. And so there was a lot of music.
You're the baby, huh?
I am the baby. I'm the youngest out of 8.
I'm the youngest out of less than 8. Out of 4.
But yeah, there
was a couple of babies here.
Exactly. But no, there was I guess my earliest thing with music came from the school system. Yeah. 4th, 5th grade, starting on recorder, then moving to clarinet. And then from there, I wanted to be a bass player. I remember seeing Gene Simmons or Kiss on Don Kirshner's rock concert and going, that's what I want to do. And the look of horror on my father's face was, he's an old Greek truck driver. So that's kind of where I started. I started taking lessons, got into the high school jazz band, rock bands, toured all up and down New England, the East Coast, just playing nightclubs, playing top 40 rock. And got to the point where I realized that if this is where it's going to end, I got to take it somewhere else. And that's when I made the decision to move to the West Coast to go to Musicians Institute, enrolled in BIT.
Was Berkeley not an obvious place to go, given that you were right nearby?
Everybody asks that. It was an obvious place. I wanted to go to LA. That's, that was really the deciding factor. I could have gone to Berkeley for 4 years, but I really wanted to be in LA. I thought that's where the music scene was. Yeah. That's where all my studio heroes were. And let's face it, the weather's just absolutely fantastic. So I get to hang in LA. I'm also a motorcycle rider, so I brought my bike out with me. And
we were talking the other day when you were at MI or BIT. It was Dale Titus, and I think maybe Steve Bailey was there. Or,
Yep. Dale Titus was Dale was my mentor. He's still one of my dear friends. Steve Bailey was still teaching there. That was the other thing too. All these high-profile players: Steve Bailey, Bob Magnuson, Putter Smith, Tim Bogert, Jeff Berlin, Gary Willis.
Jeff was still there at that time?
Jeff was coming in and out. He wasn't I don't think he was a full-time faculty, but he was coming in and out and doing guest spots.
You mentioned Bob Magnuson. I took lessons from him a few decades ago. I interviewed him not too long ago, but just perked the question, did you ever play upright?
Currently, I would say probably 50% of my work is on upright now.
Okay,
yeah.
But so that was not from your Gene Simmons influence?
No, actually, when I was at BIT, I remember taking Bob Magnuson's upright class, and that's what kind of hooked me into pursuing it a little bit further. And then when I moved back to Boston, I started taking private lessons with Bruce Gertz.
Oh, I love Bruce.
And Bruce was the one that, he's like, you need to be playing more upright, not as much electric. He says, you'll get more work, and you're you kind of sound okay on it.
He sent me his newest record not too long ago. I love the title. It's called Eepin' and Beepin'.
Eepin' and Beepin'. It sounds like Bruce, man.
So talk to me about your experience being a working musician in the LA music scene.
Oh man, it was that's where I learned to be a pro. And that's where you learn, it's the real world. You go to auditions, you get turned down from auditions. I had a lot of high hopes. My dream was to play with a national touring act. And like I said, you learn how to audition for people. Either you're too tall, you're too fat, you're too short, your hair's not long enough, you don't have enough tattoos. It's
Is the playing ability one factor in getting?
Well, it's funny. The playing ability will get you to the audition.
Okay.
Anybody that's in that audition obviously can play the part. It's a matter of now, can you hang with the people? Do you look the part? Are you the right, you're the right chemistry? So I never really scored the big gig. I did a lot of like smaller gigs around town. Did a lot of session work, demo sessions. And that's kind of where I figured, this is going to be my niche. I'm going to stay local. I ended up teaching at BIT for a bunch of years there. And of course, my wife was with me. We had our daughter in LA. So I was like, you know what? I think at this point that the rock star thing might not be in the future for me. And I'm just going to figure out another way I can make a living playing bass and playing my instrument.
All right. Let's talk about your equipment and your gear. That is a nice. I love that color, by the way, the purple.
Thank you.
And I notice it says Ampeg on it. Any particular reason?
Well, for the last 15 years, I've been the product specialist and clinician for Ampeg. Like I said, trying to figure out a way to make a living in this industry. At that time, Ampeg was gracious enough to give me a full-time job. I was demoing gear for them at NAMM shows and stuff. And at that point, the sales manager at the time, Stan Morgan, said, "Hey, why don't we just hire you? And we could use a guy like you on staff." It's been 15 years. I've been demoing and promoting and traveling the world on the graciousness of Ampeg, being able to travel the world playing my bass, demo, and amplifiers for them.
Yeah, back when I was doing all kinds of touring and traveling, you never know what they're going to have for you on the stage.
Yeah.
And when they had an Ampeg for me, I was always excited. Even if it was a smaller gig, it might have been a B-15, or if it was a huge venue, it could be a big SVT. And I always got excited about it. Tell me something about Ampeg that people may not know, or something that everybody really needs to know. Everybody knows the name, everybody knows the brand. You've been around forever. Talk to me a little bit about Ampeg.
Well, Ampeg was the first bass amp company. It was started in 1949 by a gentleman by the name of Everett Hull, who was a bass player.
How many bass amps were sold in 1949?
Not very many. Not very many. Back then, there was
Montgomery, maybe?
Yeah, he came up with the idea of taking the end pin out of his upright and putting a microphone on it, and he called it the amplified peg, and that's where Ampeg comes from. So back then, there were no such thing as a solid body electric bass. It was, if you played bass, you played upright, and then the amplified peg was what amplified your upright, and that morphed into selling bass amplifiers, and then. The rest is history. Like I tell everybody, man, when you're buying an Ampeg, you're literally buying 60 years of innovation and history. So when I do my clinics, I tell guys, think of what today's music would sound like if there was no such thing as the amplified peg. All those iconic bass lines. My Girl. If that wasn't done on an electric bass through a bass amp, regardless of what bass amp, but what would that stuff sound like if we were still confined to just the upright bass?
Are there a lot of purists that you find that got to have a tube amp versus a solid state amp? And what about the number of each type that is manufactured or purchased? Is there a big demand for one over the other? People still like the tube amps?
Yeah, in fact, we just came out with 2 new all-tube amps, low wattage tube amps. And there's still a demand for it. I think people still want that big, fat, warm, all-tube sound.
Those are the people that are buying vinyl records, I bet, right?
Myself included. But there's also, there's been so many great innovations in the last 10 years in bass amplifier manufacturing. The advent of Class D, to be able to carry a 1,000-watt, 5-pound amplifier in your gig bag, there's a lot of pluses to that too. You know, it's the equivalent, like, guys, when I do a clinic, I'll say, how many people still spin vinyl? You see a couple of hands go up, and then I'll pull out my iPhone and say, how many people have iPhones? And you see everybody's hand go up. How many?
Except for the ones that didn't hear you because they're on their
because they're on Facebook saying, what's this jerk talking about? But you know, so there's pros and cons. I would say, you know, a lot of the working cats, the guys that are in and out of the hotels and the nightclubs and the social events, they want stuff that's going to be lightweight. So that's where the Class D and the, you know, the lighter amps kind of come in.
Matters to me more these days than it used to have a lightweight. Let me ask you, we'll go back to the LA thing for a minute. What advice would you have for people that are set on becoming a professional musician, working either, well, they're not really sessions like there used to be, but become a professional bass player, professional guitar player, trying to break into the scene? It's not like it used to be. What kind of advice would you have for those kind of folks?
Man, well, number one, leave your ego at the door. You're there to provide a service. You know, be professional, be polite, be on time. I think dress has a little bit to do with it. You know, if you show up in a tank top and cargo shorts and flip-flops for an audition, unless you're auditioning for that type of a gig, you know, just be professional. Be the same way if you were interviewing for a job. You know, just like I said, obviously ego at the door. That's the biggest thing. You are one of 10,000 other bass players that will take that gig if you're being a jerk about it, for lack of a better word, and be on time. Man, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Is like if you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're 5 minutes late, don't bother showing up. It's kind of something I kind of live by too.
Be on time and play in time.
And be persistent. You know, it takes years. I know friends of mine are still in LA, 10 years, 15 years on the scene, and they're just starting to get some recognition, and they're starting to make some headway. So don't think you're going to fly into LA and within a year, you know, you're going to be on the cover of Bass Player magazine. That very rarely happens. It happens, but I think it very rarely happens. Yeah, just be persistent, man. Don't take no for an answer.
Very practical advice. Last question, Dino. What would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music.
I would probably I'd be a truck driver. I guess before I moved to LA, I was a truck driver.
For Ampeg or what?
No, driving for my family. My family has a trucking company, and I did that for a bunch of years. So I would think if I didn't go to LA and pursue this, I would still be working for my family business. Yeah, or in jail.
All right. Well, it's great getting to catch up with you finally, getting to know you a little bit better after all this time. Much luck, continued success to you. It's a great story. The Ampeg thing, the great practical advice. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure.
My pleasure, too. From the 2016 Summer NAMM Show, Nashville, Tennessee, with our good friend Dino Monoxelos, I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.